Hello everyone! We are happy to see you again for a new Burda video. Today, we will be presenting the model 409 from the number 2 summer issue of Burda Curvy. As a reminder, Burda Curvy is now published 4 times a year instead of just 2. You can find more information about the magazine in the description of this video. Together, we will make this beautiful tunic that is gathered at the waist and features short gathered sleeves and a V neckline. This simple model is super dreamy and elevated by a braided trim that makes it both sophisticated and refined. We chose to sew this piece in a lightweight white double gauze fabric, which is soft and supple to combine comfort and modernity. A perfect choice for this summer. And in addition to your usual sewing supplies, you will need interfacing and braided trim. I've already cut out the pieces 21, 22, 24 to 27, and 29 according to the cutting layout, and transferred all the notches needed to make this model. Pieces 24 and 25 are also covered with interfacing. Now I start with the darts and shoulder seams. I stitch the front darts and press them down. Then I place the front and the back, right sides together, pin the shoulders, and stitch starting from notch 1. I neaten the allowances separately and press the seams open. I place the shoulders of the front facing on the shoulders of the back facing, stitch starting from notch 6, press the seams open, and neaten the outer edge of the facing. Second step, the trim and the neckline. I first remove one pom-pom at the end of the trim. I place the trim on the neckline area near the tip and pin it in place, making sure that the pom-poms are placed just after the seam line and that the straight edge of the trim is placed on the seam allowance. When I reach the tip, I fold the ends of the trim and remove another pom-pom if necessary. I baste this, then pin the facing on the neckline, right sides together, making sure the shoulder seams match up. I stitch the neckline with a zipper foot so that the trim is sewed into the seam and is stitched as close to the pom-poms as possible. I trim the allowances, clip the corners and the top, and press the allowances under the facing before top stitching it flush. I then fold the facing inward and stitch its shoulder seams to those of the tunic with a few stitches by hand. Step 3, the side seams and the trim. I then place the back on the front, right sides together, pin the side seams, and stitch starting from notch 2. I neaten the allowances separately and press the seams open. Like I did for the neckline, I pin the trim on the seam line of the lower edge of the tunic, fold over one end of the trim, and baste the tunic and trim together. The fourth step, the flounce and the trim. I place the back flounce on the front flounce, right sides together, pin the side seams, and stitch starting at notch 7. I neaten the allowances separately and press the seams open. For the gathers at the top edge of the flounce, I stitch 2 parallel lines with large stitches 5 mm apart on both sides of the seam line. I stop these at the side seams and leave the threads long at the end of the stitches. Then I pull on the 2 lower threads at the same time until I reach the width of the tunic. Once this width is obtained, I tie the threads and pin the gathered edge of the tunic to the bottom edge of the tunic, making sure the side seams match up. I then gather the allowances with the zipper foot and make sure that the trim is stitched into the seam. I neaten the allowances together and press the seam upward. I also neaten the hem of the flounce, then pin the trim on the right side of the flounce along the lower edge. Here, the straight edge of the trim is placed on the hem allowance and the pom-poms extend beyond the seam line. I stitch the trim as I always do with the zipper foot. Then I fold the hem allowance to the wrong side as I press. Now I stitch. Last step, the sleeves and trim. I stitch with large stitches, 2 parallel lines 5 millimeters apart from each other on either side of the stitch line. These will be between the notches on the sleeve head. Then I leave the threads long at the end of the stitches for later gathering. I now neaten the sleeve hem and pin the trim to the right side of the sleeves. The straight edge of the trim is placed on the sleeve hem allowance and the pom-poms extend beyond the seam line. Then I stitch the trim onto the allowance with the zipper foot. I fold the sleeves in half, right sides together, pin the allowances from under the sleeve, and a stitch starting from notch 5. I neaten the allowances separately and press the seams apart. I fold the sleeve hem allowance to the wrong side as I press, then I stitch. I now pull on the 2 lower gathering threads at the same time until I reach the size of the armhole. Then I knot the threads. I now pin the sleeve to the armhole, making sure the tunic's seam line matches up with the seam under the sleeve, that the notches 4 match up, and that the shoulder seam matches up with the notch of the sleeve head. I gather the allowances, neaten them together, and press the seam to the sleeve. And here's a new piece to add to your wardrobe. Don't forget to share your creations with us and other sewers on our social media. And subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss out on any of our Burda news. And I'll be back soon with a new model. Thanks for following us, and see you soon for a new Burda tutorial.